Well, the Mets went out and actually made a move that will help them for this year and maybe the future a bit too, as they end up acquiring two pitchers from the Los Angeles Dodgers in Adam Kolarek and Phil Bickford in exchange for cash considerations. And let's talk about it. Before we do, leave a like on the video if you do enjoy. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Met fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live next year on the channel. But let's talk about it, as we're going to just be brief with it. There's nothing really to be excited about. First of all, my initial reaction to the trade is it is what it is. You bring in some arms that you could either flip at some point next year, because I'm sure that they have some control. So you could either flip them next year if they perform, or worst case, you cut them if they underperform. You just get some bodies in here. You get some replacements in the bullpen for the guys that you ended up losing in Robertson and Dominic Leone, which I'll have a trade video on later. And not that Leone was good, but still, you needed to get some arms in the pen. And they went out and did just that. And one of them I'm a little more excited about than the other because of the fact that he is still only 28 and there's maybe some upside there. But let's talk about it. And we're going to start with the guy that I'm not as excited about, in Adam Kolarek, as he is 34 years old, a left-handed pitcher, 6'3", 215. And he was actually a Mets draft pick at one point in his career back in 2010. He was a Mets draft pick. He spent time in the Mets organization as well, and they end up bringing him back. He's a left-handed pitcher, like I mentioned, and he's a sidearm guy, so that's something that the Mets are accustomed to. Aaron Loop was a left-handed sidearm guy, but he hasn't really pitched much at all. I think it speaks volume when the Oakland A's only played him for 15 games last season. That speaks volumes to how he is as a pitcher, but he's really just whatever. His ERA this year is at a 0, but this is only in one inning pitch. An expected ERA at 0.52, a FIP at 0.27, and a 1.49 expected FIP. If you looked at those numbers, that would obviously be great. But again, he hasn't played a full season really since 2019, where he split time with two different teams. He split time with, I'd assume, the Rays and the Dodgers, considering that he ended up being a Dodger afterwards and he was a Ray before. But in that, he pitched 80 games, 55 innings. He had a 7.3 Ks per nine, a 2.62 walks per nine, which is not the greatest at all. 1.15 home runs per nine is not tragic, but his ERA 3.27, a 3.43 expected ERA, a 4.27 FIP, and an expected FIP at 3.74, which is respectable for a guy that is just kind of the lower leverage type relievers, one of those guys. So it's respectable to have those type of numbers. I don't expect them to make really any big impact. Like I said, the best case for the Mets is they end up catching lightning in a bottle here. And if the Mets do want to turn things around next year and try to contend, then they have another left-handed arm to pair with Brooks Raley in the bullpen. And worst case, you just flip him next year if the team's not performing well, or if they don't want to contend, and if he does well enough. And, or I should say, the actual worst case, because that would still be best case. Worst case, you have to cut ties with him because he doesn't perform well enough. So I'm not too... I could care less about this, honestly. It really is a low-risk move. And then if you want to go to Savant Page in 2019, where he played his last full season, the biggest issue, it looks like, with him is his fastball and his fastball spin. His velocity is just not there, and it just does not have spin on it. His average velocity he's sitting at around 90, 87 range, so that's not really anything too impressive. And he mainly relies on his sinker and his slider, so definitely not the best arsenal and not really anything too great with him. And he does struggle to strike out batters, but again, it's a low-risk move. And then the other guy that they acquired, in Phil Bickford, I'm a little more excited about because of the fact that there may be something there. Maybe he's under control. He's arbitration eligible in 2025. He's going to be a free agent in 2028. So the Mets have him under control for a very long time, and he could either be just a AAA guy, a guy that they move up and down, or he could be a guy that ends up sticking around if he does well enough. A former first-round pick. He is a right-handed 6'4" pitcher, 200 pounds, 28 years old. And again, we'll see what he is. I'm a little more excited because, like I said, maybe there's something there. In AAA, this year. He's only played one game, and he was lights out in that one game, although his FIP was at a 2.04 somehow, even though his ERA is at a 0. But regardless, this year with the Dodgers in 36 games played and 42 innings pitched, he has a 10.2 Ks per nine, which is actually pretty solid. But this is where it gets bad. A 5.57 walks per nine. Yikes. 1.07 home runs per nine is not bad. And his ERA 5.14, expected ERA at 5.17, and FIP at 4.39, and expected FIP at 4.81, and a 0.1 WAR. So he's actually a positive when it comes to WAR. But again, I'm not expecting much from him. I'm really not. It kind of just is what it is. He was okay for the Dodgers last year too. Had better numbers last year than this year. Just an okay guy. And then he ended up spending time in the MLB in 2021, which was probably his peak year. But again, you get a guy that it's kind of a low risk, high reward type thing. If you look at his Savant numbers, they actually weren't bad last year. He just gives up a good amount of hard contact. He definitely has control issues. This year, his numbers look a lot worse. He has a four seam and a slider. Those are his pitches that he relies on the most, according to Baseball Savant. And his velocity usually sits in the low 90s. So again, a guy that doesn't really have a lot of velocity. So I don't really know how the Mets are going to work with him to maybe fix that. But again, worst case, you just cut ties with him and he doesn't end up being anything. Best case, you found yourself a diamond in the rough of a relief pitcher. And let's be honest, he's probably similar, if not maybe better than Dominic Leone. So it is what it is. But that's going to be it for me with this video. Just wanted to make a brief little video on these acquisitions. I'm going to have the Leone and fan videos out next. And then eventually, I don't know if I'll get that up tonight or tomorrow, I'm going to have the full recap of the entire trade deadline for the New York Mets. So we're going to be talking a lot. And then, of course, the post-game recap tonight. So there's a lot to get into content-wise for this Mets team still. But that's going to be it for me. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Met fans. Turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live next. And I'll see you guys in the next one.